After 26 months lost between war water and paperwork, Cole Mercer came home through an Idaho blizzard, expecting his wife, his porch light, and his German shepherd. Instead, he found Sage collapsed in the snow beside two dying puppies, her eyes still begging him to follow the trail back to the house that had betrayed them all. Snow came sideways across northern Idaho, not falling so much as charging, each white gust striking the windshield like thrown salt. Outside Sandpoint, where the dark shoulders of the Selkirk Mountains leaned over Lake Pend Oreille, Cole Mercer kept both hands on the wheel of his old gray pickup and drove toward the life he had carried like a match cupped inside his chest. He was 43, a former Navy SEAL with broad shoulders, dark brown hair clipped short, gray eyes, and a thin scar cutting through his left eyebrow like a pale thread. He wore an olive field jacket over a dark thermal shirt, heavy jeans, brown military boots, and the old watch his father had worn until the day his hands stopped working. The watch had survived saltwater, shrapnel, dust, hospital soap, and 26 months of Cole telling himself that time, if treated with respect, might still bring a man home. He had been away too long. A maritime rescue contract in the Gulf of Aden had turned into a night of flares, broken radio calls, and gunfire skipping over black water. After that came a hospital in Malta, a wrong name on a discharge form, a dead phone, 2 letters returned without explanation, and the slow, humiliating labor of proving he was not a ghost. The world had 1,000 ways to misplace a living man. Cole knew most of them now. What kept him moving through each one was a picture of a cedar house on Bottle Bay Road, a porch light glowing warm gold, Paige standing in the doorway with one hand over her mouth, and Sage racing across the yard with that serious shepherd face ruined by joy. Sage had been his dog, his shadow, his 4-legged conscience. A sable German shepherd with a black mask, amber eyes, and one torn right ear from the day she tried to herd a porcupine and learned a theological lesson about pride. Cole had rescued her as a nervous young working dog when he left active duty. She had rescued him right back, although she had the manners never to say so. When nightmares tore him out of bed, Sage was already there, chin on the mattress, breathing slowly until he copied her. When Paige cried after miscarriages, they never found words, for Sage pressed her whole body against Paige's knees and refused to move until the storm inside the room changed weather. Cole smiled at the memory, a small, hard smile that made his face look less tired for a second. On the passenger seat sat a canvas duffel, damp at the edges, with a carved wooden loon wrapped in newspaper for Paige and a blue rubber ball for Sage. It had seemed silly to buy a dog toy at a gas station outside Spokane in a blizzard, but hope was often ridiculous when it had been starved long enough. He let it be ridiculous. The road narrowed near a stand of frozen cottonwoods, and the truck headlights caught nothing but snow, then black pines, then the sudden dull shine of ice across the asphalt. Cole eased off the gas. The wind shoved the pickup a foot toward the ditch. He corrected, jaw tight, listening to the tires hiss on packed snow. That was when he saw the shape. At first it was only a low mound near the shoulder, half buried darker than the drifts around it. Then the mound moved. Not much. A tremor, a lift, a collapse. Cole's right foot found the brake before thought arrived. The pickup slid with a groan that went through the frame and up his spine, then stopped crooked in the lane. For a long second he stared through the glass. The shape became a dog. A German shepherd body curved around 2 smaller forms pressed against her belly. Snow had crusted along her back and muzzle. Her head rested on the ground as if it had become too heavy for the neck that carried it. Beside her, 2 puppies lay splayed in the snow, not curled like sleeping pups, but flattened, collapsed, their small legs limp, their faces drawn into a sadness no creature that young should know. One had a black and tan coat and a narrow little skull. The other was paler sable, with a white mark under the chin. They looked like toys a child had dropped and forgotten in winter. Cole opened the door, and the blizzard punched into the cab. Cold took his breath. He stepped down, leaving the engine running, and moved toward the shoulder with his palms visible, slow as a man approaching a wounded soldier who might not know the battle had ended. "Easy," he said, and the word vanished in the wind. The shepherd lifted her head. It cost her. He saw the tremble run from her ears down the long line of her spine. Amber eyes found him through the snow. The world stopped. "Sage?" Her torn ear twitched. It was the smallest answer, and it nearly took his knees out from under him. Cole crossed the last yards and dropped into the snow. Up close, she was worse than he had feared. Once powerful through the chest, she was now all angles beneath wet fur. Her collar hung loose, then bit suddenly where a broken length of chain had snagged and frozen against the leather. Around her neck, the fur was rubbed thin in a cruel ring. Her ribs rose and fell in shallow jerks. Still, when he reached for the puppies, Sage shifted her head over them, not growling, not warning him away, just asking the only question a mother had left. "I know," Cole whispered. His hands were steady. That frightened him more than shaking would have. He slid one puppy into his jacket, then the other, feeling their cold bellies against his shirt, the faint flutter of life under fragile bones. The black and tan pup made a sound no louder than a match being struck. The sable female did not move until Cole rubbed her chest with 2 fingers and begged under his breath, in a voice he had not used since combat medics were working over men he loved. "Come on, little bird. Stay here. Stay." Sage watched him, her muzzle pressed weakly against his wrist. That touch broke something. He bowed over her, forehead against her snow-packed fur, and for 3 breaths, he was not a SEAL, not a contractor, not a man returned from places people politely called complicated. He was only someone who had promised a dog he would come home, and had come too late. Not too late, he corrected himself with a violence that had no sound. Not if she was breathing, not if the puppies were warmable. Not if God had put them in his headlights instead of under another foot of snow. He stripped off his field jacket, wrapped Sage as well as he could, and lifted her. She was frighteningly light. A dog who had once launched herself into his chest like a guided missile now sagged in his arms like wet laundry and trust. The chain dragged through the snow behind her until he twisted it free and saw the broken end. It had snapped recently. The metal was new bright where the force had torn it. Not an old farm chain left in a shed. Not an accident. Cole carried her to the truck, laid her across the bench seat, and tucked both puppies between her belly and the heat vents. Sage gave one weak lick to the sable pup's head, then her eyes rolled toward Cole, still awake, still watching, as if she had one mission left and would not resign until he understood. "I am here," he said, putting the truck in gear. "I am here, girl. I have you." He drove too fast for the road, too slowly for the panic in his chest. The heater blasted hot air that smelled of dust and old coffee. The puppies began to twitch. Sage's breathing rasped against the worn vinyl. Cole kept one hand on the wheel and one hand on her shoulder, feeling each breath like a verdict postponed. Through the storm, the town sign appeared, half hidden under ice. Sandpoint, Idaho. Beyond it waited Bottle Bay Road, the house. Page Answers. He wanted to go straight to the veterinary clinic, but the clinic was past town, and Sage's eyes would not leave the side road that led home. When he turned by reflex toward Bottle Bay, she lifted her head an inch. A sound rose from her, not quite a growl, not quite a whine. It was recognition, braided with dread. Cole looked down at the broken chain again. A small square of plastic was taped near the collar buckle, slick with ice. A tracker. Cheap, hidden badly. Someone had not been trying to love Sage from a distance. Someone had been trying to know where she ran. The pickup climbed the last hill. In the white blur ahead, the cedar house appeared at the end of the lane, porch light burning bright. But the light was wrong. White, not gold. Hard, not warm. Cole slowed. Beside the garage stood a black SUV with tinted windows and clean chrome wheels too polished for a mountain road in a storm. On the porch where Sage used to sit like a queen, pretending she was not waiting for him, a new security camera blinked red under the eave. Cole stopped the truck. Sage's body stiffened under his hand, and both puppies made tiny, miserable sounds against her belly. The front door opened before he could knock. The wind had sharpened by the time Cole stepped onto the porch, needling snow under his collar and across the raw skin of his face. Bottle Bay Road lay behind him in a white silence, and the house ahead of him looked almost like the one he remembered. Cedar siding dark with wet snow, stone chimney breathing smoke. Porch boards he had sanded himself one August while Paige handed him lemonade and complained that he turned every repair into a military exercise. Almost. The lock was new, brushed steel instead of the old brass deadbolt that stuck in cold weather. The welcome mat was gone. A camera above the door made a tiny mechanical click as it adjusted to his face. Cole stood there with no jacket, sleeves damp, his body still holding the shape of Sage's weight from carrying her to the truck. Behind him, through the pickup glass, the German Shepherd lay under his field jacket with two puppies tucked close, their small bodies beginning to shiver back toward life. The door opened 6 inches, then all the way. Paige Mercer stood in the warm spill of the hallway. She was 38, slender, honey blonde hair brushed smooth to her shoulders, wearing a cream sweater and dark leggings that looked too careful for a woman surprised in a blizzard. Her face still had the softness Cole remembered, but it had been arranged differently, as if worry had moved the furniture inside her. For 1 second her mouth opened and no sound came. Cole waited for joy. He would have accepted anger. He would have taken a slap, a sob, a laugh that turned into both. Instead, he saw calculation strike fear in the eyes of the woman he had crossed half the world to reach. "Cole," she said. His name sounded like a dish she had dropped and could not decide whether to pick up. Paige. The years crowded between them, wet and cold. He had imagined this moment so many times that the real version felt badly rehearsed. "I came home." Her gaze jumped past him to the truck. The porch light made the windshield shine, but Sage's head lifted just enough for her amber eyes to catch. Paige's face went white. Not with relief, with alarm so naked it had no manners. "You found her?" Cole's hands closed once at his sides. "On the highway, with 2 puppies, half frozen." Paige swallowed. The movement looked painful. "She ran off. She was chained. No, she..." Paige stopped, then restarted in a flatter voice. "She became aggressive after you disappeared. I could not control her. She kept tearing things up, digging under fences, biting at anyone who came near." Cole looked through the open door. The entryway smelled of cedar polish, coffee, and a cologne he did not own. There was a new runner on the floor, black and gray. The framed photo from their wedding was missing from the table. In its place sat a glass bowl full of polished stones, the kind of expensive object people bought when they had too much silence and wanted it to look intentional. From behind Paige came footsteps. A man appeared at her shoulder with one hand resting lightly against the doorframe, blocking nothing and claiming everything. Trent Halverson was 46 tall and narrow in a charcoal overcoat, black hair combed back, cheekbones sharp enough to make his smile seem borrowed. He wore leather shoes polished to a shine that had no business near slush. Cole recognized him vaguely. A local land broker who used to shake hands too long at county fundraisers, a man with lakefront dreams and a voice polished smooth as a stone you could still cut yourself on. "Mr. Mercer," Trent said. "This is unexpected." Cole let his eyes move from Trent's shoes to his face. "It was my house. That should have made it less unexpected." Paige flinched. Trent did not. Of course, poor wording. What I mean is everyone believed you were gone. Dead. Presumed. By who? Trent's smile thinned. The appropriate agencies were unclear. Paige did what she had to do to keep matters stable. Cole heard the phrase matters stable and thought of Sage's neck rubbed raw of two puppies flattened in snow with grief on their small faces of a hidden tracker taped like guilt to a collar. Is that what you call it? Paige stepped forward, anger finally arriving because anger was easier to wear than shame. You do not get to walk in after more than 2 years and judge what happened here. I paid taxes. I answered calls from banks. I sat through holidays with no body to bury and no husband to mourn properly. You have no idea what it was like. Cole nodded once. It was not agreement. It was restraint. I know what it is like to wake up in a hospital and not know what name they wrote on your chart. I know what it is like to send letters and wonder if silence is whether distance or choice. I know what it is like to come home and find my dog dying on the side of the road. The last sentence emptied the hallway. Paige looked at the truck again. From inside came a tiny cry, one of the puppies finding hunger after almost losing the right to it. Cole turned his head at once. Paige did too, but she did not move toward the sound. That told him more than any confession could have. "Did you know about the puppies?" he asked. "Sage got pregnant after she ran off." "That is a convenient miracle." Trent's voice slipped in. "This is an emotional night. The animal was unstable, Cole. Paige tried. We all tried. There are records." Cole stared at him. "You call her the animal again, and I will have to pray very hard before I answer." Trent's eyes cooled. Paige whispered, "Don't." To whom Cole could not tell. He looked beyond them into the living room. New furniture. A leather chair where his father's rocker had been. A large architectural rendering leaned against the far wall, half covered by a throw blanket. He saw only a corner of blue water, white buildings, a name in elegant print, Frostline Harbor. Something inside him went quiet, the way it had before boarding a hostile vessel in the dark. Not calm. Trained. "I need to bring Sage and the pups in while I call the vet," he said. Paige's mouth tightened. "Cole, I don't think that is wise." The words arrived small and final. He almost laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because the mind sometimes reached for the wrong tool when grief was too large. "You changed the locks." "I had to." "You changed the light." "The old fixture broke." "You changed my home." Trent took a step closer to Paige. Not protection. Possession made polite for company. "The property has been maintained under legal authority. Paige can explain when the time is appropriate." Cole looked at his wife. Legal authority? She would not meet his eyes. There it was then. Not all of it, but the first stone turned over. He had signed a limited power of attorney before leaving enough for taxes, repairs, emergency expenses. A key for the pantry, not the deed to the house. He had trusted Paige with the paper because he trusted Paige with his life. Some betrayals did not roar. Some wore a cream sweater and said your name like a problem. Sage barked from the truck. It was weak, broken in the middle, but it had the old note in it, the note that meant Cole, look. He turned. Sage had pushed herself upright despite the puppies shifting against her. Her eyes were fixed past the house, beyond the garage toward the old boathouse at the bottom of the property where pine trees crowded the slope to the lake. Her lips lifted. A low growl trembled out of her thin chest. Cole followed her gaze. In the storm, through the moving white, a narrow line of light glowed between the boathouse boards. Then it vanished. Trent saw where he was looking, and for the first time his face changed. Only a flicker. Enough. Cole stepped off the porch. Paige said his name softer now, almost pleading. He did not turn back. He climbed into the truck, checked the puppies, touched Sage's head, and put the engine in reverse. The house stayed bright behind him, but brightness was not warmth. At the end of the lane, he looked once in the mirror. Trent stood at the window now, phone to his ear. Cole drove toward town, toward the clinic, toward whatever truth the starving mother dog had dragged herself through a blizzard to deliver. In his lap, hidden beneath the edge of his jacket, the broken chain left a wet, rust-colored stain on his jeans. Morning came to Sandpoint as a gray bruise. The storm weakened but not gone. Snow still crawling across the streets in low, restless ribbons. The Ponderay Veterinary Clinic sat near a frozen marina, a squat white building with green trim and a hand-painted sign of a paw print beside a pine branch. And Cole reached it before the lights were on. Parking crooked across two spaces because straight lines had become a luxury. He had spent the night in a roadside motel with the heat turned high, sage on every blanket the clerk could spare, the puppies against her belly, and his own body folded on the floor beside them. He did not sleep. Sage drifted in and out, waking whenever a truck passed outside her ears, lifting before her eyes opened. Blue, the black and tan male puppy, cried in small bursts, as if offended by the idea of staying alive. Wren, the paler sable female with the white mark under her chin, barely made a sound, which frightened Cole more. By dawn, he had memorized every breath. When Dr. Leah Brooks unlocked the clinic door, she found him standing in the snow with Sage in his arms, and both puppies tucked inside a towel against his chest. Leah was 41 strong through the shoulders from years of lifting frightened animals with curly brown hair tied low, clear hazel eyes, and a face that looked practical until compassion broke through and changed the weather of it. She wore a navy parka over green scrubs and winter boots dusted with salt. She took one look at Sage and did not waste a word on surprise. "Exam room 2, she said. Cole followed her down a hallway smelling of disinfectant, warm towels, and old dog biscuits. The smells nearly undid him. They belonged to ordinary troubles, ear infections, torn nails, a beagle who ate a sock and regretted nothing. Not this. Leah laid Sage on a padded table and moved with quiet speed. She checked gums, temperature, pulse, lungs, hydration. She warmed the puppies with heated pads and wrapped Wren in a small fleece blanket that had yellow ducks on it, which made Cole want to break something because the blanket was so gentle and the world had not been. "Names?" Leah asked without looking up. "Sage," he said. "The black and tan pup is Blue. The little sable one is Wren." He did not know where the names came from. Maybe from the duffel from old hopes, from the part of him that refused to let two cold bodies remain only evidence. Leah nodded as if he had brought in registered royalty. "All right, Sage. All right, Blue. Stay with me, Wren." The dog's eyes tracked Leah's hands but did not resist. That was wrong. Sage had once objected to thermometers with the offended dignity of a county judge. Now she endured every touch as though pain had become weather, and weather did not care if one complained. Leah shaved a narrow patch at Sage's neck. The clinic fell very still. Under the fur, a ring of scarred skin circled the throat, raw in places, thickened in others with old pressure marks crossing newer wounds. Leah's mouth tightened. This is from restraint, not a leash. A fixed chain or a collar pulled tight for long stretches. Cole's fingers curled against his palm. How long? Weeks, probably months. She moved down Sage's body, parting fur over ribs and hips. Severely underweight, dehydrated, early pneumonia from exposure, paw pads cracked, rear left strain old, not treated well. She has recently nursed puppies and did it while malnourished. Her voice stayed even because animals needed calm, but Cole heard the anger under it, banked hot and clean. Leah examined the pups next. Blue tried to bite the stethoscope with the enthusiasm of a damp cotton ball. Leah gave a short laugh to spite herself. "This one has opinions." Cole looked down at the puppy, whose eyes were not fully focused, but whose small mouth was open in outrage. The sound that came out of Cole was almost a laugh, and almost something worse. Leah glanced at him, then kept working. Blue is hypothermic, underfed, but fighting. Ren is weaker, lungs are rough. She needs fluids, heat, and luck. Cole swallowed. Use mine, if I have any left. Leah did not smile. She only said, We will use everything. While a technician arrived and began preparing fluids, Leah cut away the old leather collar. A piece of plastic fell onto the metal tray with a thin tick. Cole looked at it as if it had spoken. Tracker. Leah picked it up with forceps. Cheap GPS tag, the kind people buy online and forget to waterproof. Cole thought of Sage dragging herself through storm, puppies collapsing beside her, the tracker taped where someone could follow if she ran. He thought of Trent's phone at the window. Can you scan her chip? Leah did. The machine beeped. She frowned at the screen. That is not your name. Cole felt the room narrow. Whose? Frostline Harbor Holdings, LLC. The words were too polished to belong near a wounded dog. That is Trent Halverson's company, Cole said. Leah looked at him then fully. The land broker? Yes. She scanned again as if a second beep might shame the first into decency. It did not. The registration was changed 8 months ago. 8 months. Cole had been in a government office in Virginia then, trying to convince a clerk that the typo on his temporary identity papers had cost him access to his own bank account. 8 months ago, Sage had belonged to him in every way that mattered, except the way systems counted. Can that be done without my consent? People do all kinds of things they should not do when paperwork looks official. Leah touched Sage's shoulder. I can document all injuries, photos, measurements, treatment records. If this goes legal, she and the puppies will have a medical file that speaks clearly. Cole nodded. He had spent a lifetime gathering intelligence. He knew the value of clean records and steady witnesses. Still looking at Sage under the heat lamp, he wanted something older than law. He wanted the simple justice of opening a door before a creature froze. The clinic phone rang. Leah ignored it while she placed a catheter in Ren's tiny leg. The technician answered at the front desk, then appeared in the doorway with uneasy eyes. Dr. Brooks, there is a man on line 1 asking if a German shepherd was brought in. He says she has stolen property. Cole looked up slowly. Leah's hand remained on Ren, steady as stone. Name? The technician said. Trent Halverson. Sage lifted her head at the sound. A tremor passed through her body, and for the first time in the clinic, she growled. It was weak, but Blue heard it and pressed his blind little face into his mother's side. Cole stepped toward the phone. Leah caught his wrist, not hard. No, she said quietly. We document before we confront. He looked at her hand on his sleeve. Her fingers were warm. Her eyes did not ask him to be less angry. They asked him to be useful. He breathed in once, twice, then he stepped back. Leah took the call on speaker and said with a politeness that had teeth that any animal in medical distress would remain under veterinary care until released by a veterinarian or court order. Trent's voice came through smooth and displeased. Doctor, that dog is part of an ongoing civil matter. Mr. Mercer is not stable. He has no legal right to remove animals from property under company registration. Leah glanced at Cole, then at the ring of wounds around Sage's neck. Mr. Halverson, I am looking at an emaciated nursing mother, 2 hypothermic puppies, and restraint injuries consistent with prolonged chaining. If you would like to put your ownership claim in writing, I will be happy to attach it to the medical record. Silence. Not long. Long enough to matter. You may regret involving yourself, Trent said. Leah ended the call. Cole stared at the dead phone. Ren made a tiny cough under the duck blanket. Sage tried to rise, failed, then pushed her muzzle against Cole's hand. He bent over her, pressing his forehead to hers. I am not disappearing again, he said. In the front room, tires hissed in the parking lot. A vehicle stopped outside the clinic windows, engine idling. Through the frosted glass, Cole saw the blurred shape of a black SUV. By afternoon, the storm had thinned to a cold glitter over Sandpoint, leaving the streets plowed into narrow white corridors and the lake hidden behind a veil of freezing mist. Cole sat in the office of Bethany Rhodes with the paper cup of coffee gone untouched beside his knee and the broken chain coiled inside a clear evidence bag on the desk. Bethany's office occupied the second floor above a bakery that made the whole building smell of yeast, cinnamon, and mercy. The smell felt indecently kind. Bethany was 58, sharp-eyed, silver-haired, and small enough that people made the mistake of underestimating her only once. She wore a black wool blazer, reading glasses on a silver chain, and a turquoise ring that clicked against the desk whenever a document offended her. In front of her lay Cole's old limited power of attorney, the veterinary intake papers Leah had emailed, property tax notices, deed transfers, microchip registration records, and a thick folder Paige had once kept in a kitchen drawer marked Home. Cole had found the digital copies in an old cloud account after 3 failed passwords and one memory of Paige using Sage's birthday for things she thought no one would guess. "Tell me again what you signed before you left," Bethany said. "Limited authority, taxes, repairs, insurance, utilities. No sale, no transfer, no animal registration, no business decisions." Bethany made a low sound that was neither surprise nor approval. "This says otherwise." She turned to Paige so he could see. The document looked official at first glance. His name, Paige's name, the notary stamp, county language, wide margins. Cole leaned in and felt a cold more surgical than the weather. His signature sat at the bottom, but it was wrong. Good enough for a tired clerk, maybe. Not enough for the man whose hand had written it. The C was too round. The pressure lifted where he would have pressed. Whoever copied it knew the shape, but not the muscle. "Not mine," he said. Bethany nodded as if the paper had just confessed to poor breeding. "I agree. More importantly, this notarization date falls during a period when you were hospitalized overseas, according to the medical documents you brought. That gives us leverage." She tapped another sheet. This expanded authority allowed Paige to approve land use options, temporary business registration, and asset management decisions. 2 months later, Frostline Harbor Holdings acquired a development option on the lower parcel and boathouse access. "My boathouse." "Legally, for now, your boathouse is wearing a stolen hat and insisting it has always loved real estate." Cole looked at her. Bethany did not smile. "Humor keeps me from throwing staplers." It was the first human thing anyone had said all day that did not hurt. Cole picked up the coffee and found it cold. "Trent did this. Trent likely arranged it." Paige appears to have signed confirmations at least on these 3 filings. Whether she knew the full fraud or allowed herself not to know, that is a question with teeth. Cole looked toward the window. Below, a woman came out of the bakery carrying bread under her coat, as if rescuing a child from weather. He remembered Paige in their kitchen, flour on her cheek, making soup after his first bad winter back from service. She had not been evil then. He knew that with the tired certainty of a man refusing easy lies. But goodness did not have to vanish all at once. It could be traded in small portions. A signature here, a silence there, a door not opened. "What about Sage?" he asked. Bethany lifted the microchip record. "Changed 8 months ago to Frostline Harbor Holdings. Then a breeder facility application was started but not completed. There are references to a female German Shepherd and projected litter income." Filthy little phrase, projected litter income. Cole's stomach tightened. They bred her for money. Or meant to. The paperwork suggests Trent wanted every living thing on that property tied to the company in case a dispute arose. She glanced at the chain. But paperwork is foolish in one helpful way. It leaves footprints. His phone buzzed. A text from Leah appeared. Sage stable, Blue eating a little, Ren still critical but fighting. Also, black SUV left after sheriff arrived. Cole exhaled. He had called Sheriff Aaron Price from the clinic after Trent's threat. Aaron was 52, a former Marine with a square jaw, careful eyes, and no patience for rich men who mistook a clean coat for a clean conscience. He had not promised arrests. He had promised to look. Cole respected that. Promises that small were often the only useful kind. "We need the boathouse," Cole said. "Sage reacted to it last night." Bethany slid her glasses down her nose. "Do not break into your own property while the legal title is clouded and the other side is already painting you as unstable. If evidence is there, then we get a warrant consent or a witness who can put us there cleanly. The law is a narrow bridge, Mr. Mercer. Walk it angry if you must, but walk it straight." He hated that she was right. Anger wanted doors kicked open. Justice preferred paperwork with stapled corners. On the sidewalk below, an old man stood under the awning across the street. He wore a red and black flannel jacket, a faded cap, and the slumped posture of someone trying to decide if courage had business hours. Cole noticed him because noticing still happened in his body before thought. The old man looked up at Bethany's office window, then away. "Do you know him?" Cole asked. Bethany followed his gaze. "Hank Mallory. Lives 2 properties north of you. Repairs boat motors when his hands cooperate. Lost his wife June 4 years ago." "Why?" Hank reached into his coat, touched something in the breast pocket, then walked away from the office door instead of toward it. "He knows something," Cole said. Bethany watched the old man disappear into the snowy street. "Most people do. The problem is getting them to know it out loud." Cole stood. "I need to talk to him. Not alone." "Bethany, I am not your commanding officer, which is fortunate for both of us, but hear me. Trent has money, lawyers, and a story prepared. He will say you are traumatized, jealous, violent, and trespassing through grief. Do not hand him scenes for his scrapbook." The words hit because they were practical, not cruel. Cole sat back down. The phone buzzed again. Unknown number. For a moment he thought it might be Paige. He opened the message. No greeting, no name, just one line. "If you want the dogs alive, stay away from the boathouse." The room changed temperature. Bethany saw his face and reached for the phone. He handed it over. She read the message, then placed it flat on the desk as though setting down a loaded weapon. "That," she said, "is useful." Cole almost laughed again. Useful. Threats are evidence when fools put them in writing. She picked up her office phone and called Sheriff Price. Cole stood by the window scanning the street for Hank, for the black SUV, for anything moving wrong in the late afternoon snow. His reflection looked back at him from the glass. Tired eyes, wet boots, jaw clenched around words he could not afford to spend. The bakery door opened below and Paige stepped out. She had a scarf over her hair and no coat warm enough for the weather. For 1 second she looked up straight at Cole, and he saw something in her face that did not fit Trent's smooth story. Fear, yes. Shame, yes. But also warning. She slipped a small manila envelope into the bakery's newspaper box, then hurried away without buying anything. Cole did not wait for permission this time. He was down the stairs before Bethany finished saying his name. Outside, the cold slapped him awake. He crossed to the newspaper box, lifted the lid, and pulled out the envelope. Inside was a single photograph, printed, badly, taken inside the old boathouse. Sage lay chained to the wall, thin, and nursing 2 newborn puppies in a wooden crate. On the back, in Paige's handwriting, were 5 words. There were 3 puppies before. Night returned to Bottle Bay Road with a low ceiling of cloud and a cold that made every sound seem made of tin. The sheriff's cruiser rolled without lights down the plowed shoulder, followed by Cole's pickup and Leah's battered clinic van. The 3 vehicles keeping enough distance to look accidental if anyone watched from the house. Sheriff Aaron Price had secured emergency permission to inspect the boathouse after Bethany sent the veterinary photos and Paige's envelope to the county judge, who, according to Aaron, disliked being woken up but disliked animal cruelty more. Cole sat beside Leah in the van because Aaron had made it plain that if Cole went near Trent alone, the whole case could be dragged into mud before it learned to stand. In the cargo area behind them, Sage lay on a thick pad under a thermal blanket. Leah had argued against bringing her. Sage had argued back by refusing to settle until Cole held the truck keys and walked toward the door. The German Shepherd could barely stand for more than a minute, but some part of her knew the night had business with her. Blue and Wren remained at the clinic, with the technician warm and guarded. Cole had touched each puppy before leaving. Blue had tried to chew his thumb. Wren had opened both eyes for the first time and looked offended by everything. It was enough to make Cole drive carefully when every other part of him wanted speed. The cedar house glowed through the pines as they passed it, white porch light on curtains drawn. No black SUV in front. No movement. The boathouse sat farther down the slope near the frozen edge of the lake, half hidden by pine trunks and snow-loaded brush. It had once been a place of summer clutter: fishing rods, spare rope, paint cans, a cracked canoe Cole always meant to repair. He had taught Paige to tie a bowline there one June evening and had laughed when she called him insufferably nautical. Now the building looked hunched and mean, its boards silvered by weather. Roof sagging under snow, a strip of yellow caution tape flapping from the old dock where no caution had come soon enough. Aaron went first, flashlight low. "Stay behind me," he said. Cole obeyed. The skill of obedience when chosen was harder than the skill of assault. Leah walked at his side with a medical bag and her mouth set in a straight line. Sage rose in the van as they neared the door and let out a sound so soft it might have been breath, except every hair on Cole's neck stood up. Aaron broke the padlock with a bolt cutter, photographed it before and after, then pulled the door open. The smell came out like a hand. Sour bedding, stale urine, frozen water, old wood, and fear trapped long enough to become part of the boards. Leah covered her nose, then lowered her hand as if refusing to hide from what Sage had endured. Cole stepped inside and saw by the light of Aaron's flashlight the place where loyalty had been made to lie down. A chain was bolted to the far wall at floor level, too short for a full-grown shepherd to pace, too low for comfort. Scratches scored the boards around it, long gouges where claws had worked in panic or labor, or both. A plastic water dish sat in one corner, split by ice. Beside it lay a metal bowl with a skin of frozen grease and kibble dust. On the floor near the wall was a wooden crate lined with a filthy towel. Leah knelt beside it. Her face changed. She lifted a clump of sable fur, then a tiny strip of blue ribbon stiff with dirt. "Puppy marker," she said. Cole remembered the photograph. 3 puppies before. The room blurred at the edges. He put one hand against a beam and breathed through his mouth, not because he was weak, because he was standing where a mother had tried to keep babies alive in a box while people who owned coats and keys and language walked above her. Sage limped through the doorway, ignoring Leah's sharp whisper. She went straight to the crate, lowered her head and sniffed. Her body trembled. Then she moved to a loose board near the back wall and pawed it once. Not frantic, certain. Aaron crouched, gloved hand testing the plank. "This board has been lifted." He photographed it, then pried it up. Underneath sat a plastic storage bin wrapped in a black trash bag. Inside were folders, a burner phone, 2 small medication bottles, printed contracts, and a ledger with dates and numbers. Leah picked up one bottle and read the label. "Acepromazine, sedative, prescribed to a clinic 2 counties over. Not mine." Aaron lifted a contract. "Sale agreement. 2 German Shepherd puppies. Deposits received." Cole stared at the names and amounts. People had put money down on lives that were lying in an incubator because a mother dog broke a chain. "Dates?" he asked. Aaron looked again. "Pickup scheduled for Friday." It was Wednesday. Leah's face went pale with anger. Wren would not have survived a car ride across town, let alone a sale. Sage turned from the crate and walked to another corner, nose low. She found a patch of straw under a tarp and began pawing again, weaker this time. Cole moved beside her and lifted the tarp. Beneath it lay old collars, lengths of chain, and a small black external hard drive wrapped in a sock. He did not touch it until Aaron photographed it. The sheriff gave a low whistle. "That may be our whole choir." Outside, a twig snapped. Everyone froze. Aaron killed his flashlight. Darkness folded over the room. Through a crack between boards, Cole saw a beam of light sweep across the snow. One person, maybe two. Slow steps. Not the measured walk of a curious neighbor. Sage's lips lifted, but no sound came out. Cole lowered himself beside her and put one hand on her shoulders. Leah eased toward the back wall where a broken window opened toward the dock. Aaron drew his sidearm, keeping it down. A man's voice cut through the wind outside. "I know you're in there." It was not Trent. Older, rougher. "Please don't shoot. I brought what I should have brought a long time ago." Aaron opened the door with his body angled behind it. In the snow stood Hank Mallory, his flannel jacket powdered white. One hand raised the other, clutching a padded envelope to his chest. His face looked carved from guilt. "Sheriff," he said, voice shaking. "Cole, I saw things. I got them on camera. I was scared, and that is no excuse, but I am tired of listening to that dog cry in my sleep." Sage stepped into the doorway. Hank saw the scar around her neck and covered his mouth with one trembling hand. The envelope slipped from his fingers and landed in the snow. The snow around Hank Mallory's boots had turned blue under the sheriff's flashlight, and for a moment, nobody moved except Sage, who stood in the boathouse doorway with her bandaged neck and unsteady legs, staring at the old man as if memory had walked up wearing a flannel coat. Hank was 72. Thin as kindling, with a gray beard trimmed unevenly, watery blue eyes and hands that trembled from age cold and the worse shaking of a conscience finally waking up. He wore a faded red and black jacket, canvas pants, and a cap from a boat engine company that no longer existed. Cole had seen him across the property line for years before leaving. Hank had always been a wave over a fence, a repaired carburetor, a Christmas tin of cookies from his late wife, June. Not family, exactly. Mountain towns had categories softer than that. Now the old man bent in the snow, picked up the padded envelope and held it toward Sheriff Price like an offering brought too late to an altar. "My camera caught part of it," Hank said. "The one over my shed. Points toward the old dock, since kids used to steal gas from my boat cans. I did not mean to spy." Aaron took the envelope but did not open it yet. "What part?" Hank looked at Sage and then away, ashamed by the mercy in her eyes. "More than I wanted. Less than she deserved." Cole stepped out into the snow. Leah moved with him close enough to catch Sage if the dog fell. "You heard her?" Cole asked. The question had no volume, which made it worse. Hank's chin worked. "Yes." The lake groaned under its skin of ice, a deep, shifting sound like something old turning in sleep. Hank pulled his cap off and held it in both hands. "At first I thought she was in heat, or fussing at coyotes. Then I heard pups. Little cries. I came down one night and saw Trent through the boards. He had her chained. He was angry because she had chewed at the door. Paige was there too, standing outside with a blanket in her arms. She kept saying it was too cold. He told her she had already signed enough papers to hang them both if she changed her mind." Cole felt Leah's hand brush his sleeve, not holding him back yet, only reminding him that he had a body, and bodies could become weapons if grief took the wheel. "And you went home," Cole said. Hank closed his eyes. "I went home." The words fell small into the snow. "Trent had been after my place, too. Said I owed back assessments. Said he could make trouble over my dock permits. I was afraid. I told myself it was not my dog. I told myself Paige would handle it. I told myself a lot of things that sounded better with the lights off." Sage took a step forward and nearly collapsed. Cole caught her. The dog rested her muzzle against his forearm, but her eyes stayed on Hank. There was no growl in her now. That almost hurt more. "What is on the recording?" Aaron asked. Hank wiped his nose with the back of his hand. "Several nights. Trucks at the boathouse. Trent carrying feed bags in, then coming out with them still mostly full. Paige leaving something by the door and crying. A hired man taking a small box away, maybe." His voice cracked. "Maybe the third pup. I do not know. I did not zoom in. I could not make myself." Leah turned her face toward the lake, jaw tight. Cole looked at the ground, because if he looked at Hank too long, he might forget Bethany's narrow bridge. Aaron opened the envelope. Inside was a memory card and a folded note. The sheriff read the note, then put it back carefully. "Mr. Mallory, are you willing to make a statement?" Hank nodded. "Yes." "On record?" "Yes." "Even if Trent threatens your property?" Hank's laugh came out broken. "Sheriff, I have been threatened by my own cowardice for months. Trent can wait his turn." Cole looked up. The line should have been funny. In another life, maybe it would have been. Sage made a soft sound, not forgiveness, not accusation. Hank knelt in the snow with effort, old knees protesting. "I am sorry," he said to her. He did not aim it at Cole. That mattered. "I heard you, girl. I heard those babies. I shut my curtains. I am sorry." Sage stared at him for several long seconds. Then she leaned forward and touched her nose to his sleeve. Hank broke. It was not graceful. Grief rarely was. He pressed his knuckles to his mouth, shoulders shaking while the wind moved around them. Cole looked away to give him the scrap of privacy he had not earned but still needed. Leah's phone rang. She answered, listened, and her face changed so quickly Cole knew before she spoke that something had happened at the clinic. "Blue is stable," she said to him. "Ren spiked a fever. They are starting antibiotics and oxygen." Cole's breath caught. Leah kept listening. Then her posture sharpened. "Say that again?" Aaron turned toward her. Leah lowered the phone. "My text says a man came to the back door asking about a delivery. She did not open. After he left, she found pry marks near the frame. The boathouse seemed to close around them even though they stood outside." Aaron swore under his breath. "Everyone to the clinic, now!" They secured the evidence as quickly as law allowed. Cole carried Sage back to Leah's van, and Hank insisted on riding with Aaron, hands clasped around a statement he had not yet given, but seemed to hold already. The drive to town felt longer than war. Cole watched the road through the windshield and saw only Ren's small body under the yellow duck blanket, the way she had not cried because she had not had strength to ask the world for anything. At the clinic, lights blazed in every window. Aaron pulled in first, then Cole and Leah. The back door showed fresh scratches near the lock, but it had held. Inside, the technician met them with red eyes and a determined chin. "Ren is in oxygen. Blue 8. I called my brother and he is sitting in the lobby with a tire iron." Leah blinked. "Your brother the youth pastor?" "He is versatile." For the first time that night, something almost like laughter moved through the room. It did not last, but it helped the walls stay upright. Cole went to the treatment area. Blue wobbled in a warmed pen, belly rounder than before, trying to bark at his own foot. Ren lay in a clear oxygen chamber, tiny ribs fluttering. Sage, despite weakness, pressed her nose to the chamber wall. Wren stirred and turned toward her mother. Cole put one hand on the glass. "Stay," he whispered. "All of us, stay." Outside, Aaron reviewed security footage. The camera showed a man in a knit cap at the back door, face turned just enough toward the light. Hank, standing behind the sheriff, went rigid. "That is Roy Decker," he said. "Works for Trent. Drives his equipment truck." Aaron's phone rang before anyone could answer. He listened, eyes fixed on the frozen image of Roy's face. "All right," he said. "Do not approach." He hung up and looked at Cole.
Deputy spotted Trent's SUV near the ferry road heading toward town. Leah's clinic phone rang next. She picked it up, said hello, and went still. She held the receiver out to Cole. "It is Paige. She says she needs to talk to you before Trent finds out she called." The clinic windows were black mirrors by the time Cole took the phone, and in each one he saw pieces of the room doubled back at him. Leah beside the oxygen chamber, Sage lying with her head lifted, Blue asleep against a rolled towel, Hank hunched in a lobby chair like a man waiting for sentence, Sheriff Price speaking quietly to a deputy near the front desk. Outside Sandpoint lay under fresh snow, streetlights glowing in soft halos, every parked car rounded into a white confession. Cole held the receiver and listened to Paige breathe. For several seconds, she said nothing. He could hear wind on her end, and traffic, and the thin metallic clink of something loose against a pole. "Cole," she said at last. Her voice had always been pretty even when angry. Now it sounded like paper that had been folded too many times. "Is Sage alive?" He looked through the glass at the German shepherd. Sage's eyes were half closed, but one ear tilted toward his voice. "Yes." A small sound came through the line, relief or pain or both. "The puppies. Blue is eating, Wren is fighting." Paige sobbed once, quickly strangled. Cole did not comfort her. Some silence was not cruelty. Some silence was a room left honest. "What do you want, Paige?" "Trent knows about the memory card." Cole turned slightly toward Aaron, who noticed at once. "How?" "Roy called him from outside the clinic. I heard them arguing. Trent said if Hank talks, everything falls apart." "Where are you?" "St. Agnes, the little church by the ferry road. I had to leave the house. Her breathing broke. "He is not who I told myself he was." Cole closed his eyes. The sentence was small, late, and still it cut. "Did he hurt you?" "I am fine." "That is not an answer." "My lip is split. I am fine enough." Leah's face hardened when Cole repeated it for the sheriff. Aaron motioned to a deputy, then mouthed, "Keep her talking." Cole looked at Sage again. The dog had opened her eyes fully now. She knew Paige's voice. Her body stayed still, but her gaze sharpened with a sorrow older than anger.
"Why did you call me?" Cole asked. "I have papers, not copies, originals. He kept them in the safe and moved some tonight. I took what I could." "Bring them to the sheriff." "I cannot. He is looking for me. Cole, I know I do not have a right to ask you for anything." A laugh moved in his throat with no humor. "That is the first accurate thing anyone said today." Paige took it because she had to. "I need to give them to you before he finds me." Aaron shook his head firmly. Cole covered the receiver. "She is at St. Agnes." "We go together," Aaron said. "You do not meet her alone." Cole nodded. The narrow bridge again. He was beginning to hate bridges. Into the phone, he said, "Stay inside. Lock the door if you can." "The side chapel is open. I am by the candles." Her voice softened in a way that made him remember another Paige, younger.
Barefoot on their kitchen tile, lighting a candle after the miscarriage, because words had failed both of them. "Cole, I am sorry." He looked at Sage's neck,
at Wren's small lungs pumping under plastic at Hank's bent head. Save it for the statement. He hung up before Pity could borrow his hand. Leah stepped close. I am coming. No. Sage will panic if you leave without someone she trusts, and if Paige has been hit, she needs medical eyes. You are a veterinarian. I have eyes, and gauze. Do not be precious. Hank raised his head from the chair. I will stay here with the pups. Leah looked at him. He straightened a little. I mean it. I shut one light off too many. I can keep one on. Sage, as if understanding only the shape of the promise, lowered her head back to the blanket. Cole touched her shoulder. I will be back. Her amber eyes held him. He waited until she blinked. The road to St. Agnes curved along the lake, past shuttered bait shops and summer cabins sleeping under snow. Aaron drove the cruiser, Cole beside him, Leah in the back with the first aid kit on her lap and a look that suggested she would enjoy meeting Trent in a room full of witnesses. The church appeared beyond a stand of bare birches, white clapboard steeple dark against the clouds, windows glowing faintly amber. No other cars in the front lot. Aaron parked behind the parish hall and killed the lights. Stay behind me, he said again. Cole stepped out and heard the lake shifting under ice beyond the trees. The side door was unlocked. Inside, the church smelled of wax, old wood, and the faint lemon polish of volunteers who believed cleanliness was a form of prayer. Paige stood near the votive candles with a manila folder clutched to her chest. Her lower lip was split. A bruise had begun to color one cheekbone. She wore no gloves. Her hands were red from cold. For one strange second, Cole saw the woman who had once fallen asleep on the couch with Sage's head in her lap. Then the present returned and stood between them. Give the folder to Sheriff Price, Cole said. Paige looked at Aaron, then obeyed. Her eyes flicked to Leah, confused. Sage's doctor, Cole said. Leah's voice was cool. Among other inconveniences. Aaron opened the folder. Inside were signed originals notary seals, a handwritten note from Trent instructing Paige which date to use, and a printed email about changing the microchip record before Cole could challenge ownership. Aaron's face tightened with each page. Paige, I need you to come to the station. She nodded, tears gathering but not falling. I will. Cole asked the question because it had to be asked. Why did you not open the boathouse? Paige's hands wrapped around themselves. At first I thought Sage would be better there. Trent said she was dangerous, that she kept trying to get to the road and would get hit. Then she had the puppies, and I said they needed to come inside. He said no one could know because the registration was wrong and the buyer was already arranged. I brought blankets. I brought food sometimes. Her voice collapsed. Not enough. I know it was not enough. There were 3 puppies. Paige covered her mouth. Leah looked away, eyes bright with fury. The smallest died the second night, Paige whispered. I buried him under the cedar by the dock. Trent said if I told anyone I would lose everything and maybe go to prison. I believed him because believing him meant I did not have to become brave. Cole felt the church floor under his boots as if the boards might tilt. Sage cried for you too, he said. Paige's tears fell then. I know. A sound came from the vestibule. All 4 turned. Trent stood just inside the side door, snow on the shoulders of his black coat, hair disordered for once, eyes flat and bright. Paige, he said softly, you really are determined to ruin yourself. Aaron moved first. Hands where I can see them. Trent lifted them, smiling. Sheriff, this is a private marital matter. Funny, I keep finding crimes in it. Trent's gaze slid to Cole. You should have stayed dead. The words hit the little church and seemed to make the candles lean. Cole did not move. That was the victory. Leah behind him let out a slow breath.
Paige stepped away from Trent toward Aaron. It was the first wise step Cole had seen her take in a long time. Then from outside came a bark, hoarse but unmistakable. The side door not fully latched behind Trent pushed open. Hank stood on the snowy steps, pale and panting, one hand on the wall. Beside him, wrapped in Leah's spare clinic blanket but standing, Sage looked into the church. Hank swallowed. She would not let me stop her. Sage walked down the aisle, each step weak, each step chosen, and stopped between Trent and Paige. Her bandaged neck shone white in the candlelight. Trent's face lost its polish. For the first time since Cole had come home, fear looked back at him from the man who had caused so much of it. The church bell did not ring, yet the whole building seemed to listen. Outside St. Agnes, snow slid from the roof in soft, heavy sighs, and beyond the frosted windows, the lake lay dark under its skin of ice. Inside, candles trembled in red glass cups, while Sage stood in the aisle between Trent Halverson and the woman who had once fed her toast crusts under the kitchen table. The German shepherd should not have been standing. Leah's face said that clearly. Her legs trembled, her ribs showed under the clinic blanket, and the white bandage around her neck made her look both wounded and royal, like some old guardian from a story who had crawled back from the edge of the woods because the trial was not finished. Hank leaned against the wall behind her, breathing hard. "I am sorry," he said to Leah. She looked at me like I was the hired help and walked out. Leah whispered, "That sounds like her." Cole did not take his eyes off Trent. Sheriff Price had his hand near his sidearm, but not on it. "Mr. Halverson, turn around and place your hands against the wall." Trent's smile tried to return and failed halfway. "On what charge? We can begin with witness intimidation and go wandering from there." "This is absurd. Paige is distraught. Cole is unstable. You have a sick dog standing in a church as if that is evidence," Sage growled. It was not loud. It did not need to be. The sound came from a place deeper than her injured throat, low and certain. And Trent took one step back before pride caught him. Paige saw it. Cole saw Paige see it. Something in her face changed, not into innocence, not into redemption, but into recognition. The lie she had lived inside had finally shown her its frightened underside. "He hit me because I took the papers," Paige said. Her voice shook, then steadied around the next words. "He told me if Hank testified he would burn the boathouse and say Cole did it." Trent turned toward her. "Careful." Aaron stepped closer. "Do not speak to her." Paige clutched the edge of a pew. "He changed the microchip registration. He forged the expanded power of attorney. I signed confirmations afterward. I knew enough to know it was wrong. I told myself Cole was dead. Then I told myself he would come back dangerous. Then I told myself Sage was only a dog." Her eyes moved to Sage. The dog stared back without wagging, without softening. Paige deserved that clean distance. She was never only a dog. The candles hissed faintly. Cole felt the sentence move through him like thaw. Too late, yes, but true things spoken late could still become evidence. Aaron read Trent his rights in a voice that had no drama in it. Trent did not resist at first. Men like him often mistook dignity for strategy. He let Aaron cuff one wrist, then twisted suddenly toward the side aisle, aiming for the door. Cole moved by instinct, but Sage moved first. Not fast, not strong, enough. She stepped into Trent's path and barked once, a cracked, furious sound. Trent stumbled to avoid kicking her, slipped on melted snow from his own shoes, and crashed shoulder first into a pew. Aaron took him down hard enough to rattle hymnals. "Stay down," the sheriff said. "I have had a long week." Hank made a strangled sound that might have been admiration. Leah was already at Sage's side, one arm under the dog's chest. "You impossible woman," she muttered. "You are going to make my hair gray." Cole knelt too. Sage's legs folded.
but her eyes stayed on Trent until Aaron hauled him upright. "Blue and Wren," Cole whispered near her ear. "They need their mother. I need you to quit doing hero work without a permit." Sage huffed a small breath against his wrist. It sounded almost like agreement, which meant absolutely nothing. They took everyone to the station except Sage, who was returned to the clinic under Leah's loud professional disapproval, and Hank's sincere promise never again to let a recovering dog talk him into borrowing a van. Cole followed Aaron later after watching Sage settle beside the puppies. Blue tried to climb over his mother's front leg and fell backward with a surprised squeak. Wren, weaker but warmer, nosed blindly along Sage's belly until she found milk. Sage closed her eyes. For the first time since Cole had found her, her body loosened into something like rest. At the station, Paige gave a recorded statement that lasted nearly 2 hours. Cole sat outside the interview room, not because he wanted to hear every word, but because leaving felt too much like the old nightmare. Through the glass, he saw Paige fold and unfold a tissue until it fell apart. She spoke of the first year after Cole vanished, the calls that did not connect, the officials who said they had no confirmed status, the bills, the taxes, the roof leak, the loneliness that made Trent's confidence feel like shelter. She spoke of signing one paper, then another, of not reading because reading would require choosing, of Sage growling whenever Trent entered the room, of the dog escaping twice and being brought back with rope burns on her neck. She spoke of the puppies. Blue. Wren. The third pup whose name nobody had given him. Cole stood when that part came. He walked to the vending machine, bought coffee he did not want, and stared at the brown stream filling the cup. Leah appeared beside him, still in scrubs, hair escaping its tie. "You do not have to forgive her tonight," she said. "I was not planning to." "Good. I dislike rushed moral landscaping." He looked at her. "Is that a veterinary term?" "No. It is a woman who has seen too many people put flowers over holes instead of filling them." Cole held the coffee until heat burned his palm through the paper. Sage touched Hank's sleeve. "Dogs are not judges. That is why people confuse them with saints. They are better than us in some ways and wonderfully petty in others. Sage may forgive Hank for smelling like guilt and old sausage. That does not mean you have to." The corner of Cole's mouth moved. Old sausage. He had jerky in his pocket, Sage noticed. She is recovering, not dead. The small laugh surprised him. It was rough, rusty, and over quickly, but it belonged to him. Aaron came out of the interview room close to dawn. "Trent is being held on assault, witness intimidation, evidence tampering, and animal cruelty pending review. Fraud charges will take more paperwork, but Bethany is already building a bonfire with a law degree." "The property?" Cole asked. "Emergency hearing tomorrow afternoon. Trent's attorney is filing a response. They will argue you are emotionally compromised and removed animals tied to a business asset." Leah said something under her breath that would have startled her clients. Aaron pretended not to hear. "Bring medical records. Bring Hank. Bring the memory card. Bring yourself calm." Cole looked through the glass at Paige, who sat with her head bowed under fluorescent light. Calm felt like a country he had visited once and left no forwarding address. Still, he nodded. When he returned to the clinic, sunrise had begun pale behind the mountains. Sage slept with Blue under her chin and Wren tucked against her side. The two puppies no longer lay splayed with those broken, sad faces in the snow. They twitched and dreamed and made tiny, greedy sounds. Cole sat on the floor beside them until Leah set a blanket over his shoulders without asking. On the television mounted in the lobby, a local news banner rolled silently across the screen. "Frostline Harbor developer arrested after church confrontation." Under it was a file photo of Trent smiling beside the lake. Cole looked at Sage. Her eyes opened amber and tired and alive. The hearing would come next. Papers, judges, men in clean suits explaining away chains. But for that one breath, the mother and her two pups were warm. That was not the whole victory.
It was enough to stand on. The next afternoon broke clear and viciously cold. The kind of Idaho winter day where the sky turned blue enough to look merciful while every metal surface tried to take skin with it. Sandpoint's County Courthouse stood on a rise above streets packed with plowed snow, its brick walls dark with meltwater, its flag snapping hard in the wind. Cole arrived in Bethany Rhodes' old Subaru because she had insisted his truck, still stained with melted snow and dog hair, looked too much like evidence of exhaustion. He wore clean clothes, borrowed from a veteran's closet at the sheriff's office. Dark jacket, white shirt, boots, polished badly with paper towels. He felt like a man dressed for a funeral that might yet become a battle. Leah came with a folder thick enough to need its own chair. Hank came with his cap in both hands and a face the color of ash. Sheriff Price came with a memory card, secured printed stills from the footage, and the weary confidence of a man who knew truth was useful, but rarely punctual. Sage did not come. Leah refused with such force that even Sage, who had opinions about medical authority, accepted the ruling by falling asleep over Blue and Wren. The puppies had begun to make the clinic their kingdom. Blue objected to all blankets unless he had personally attacked them first. Wren, still small and raspy, had discovered that human fingers were warm and might be trusted if they arrived slowly. Cole carried the image of them into the courthouse like a second heartbeat. In the hearing room, Trent Halverson sat beside his attorney Victor Lang, a smooth man with silver glasses and a voice polished for doubt. Trent's lip was bruised from the church pew, but he wore it as if injury proved innocence. Paige sat on the opposite side under supervision, no makeup over the bruise on her cheek, hands folded so tightly her knuckles whitened. She did not look at Cole. He was grateful. Some looks wanted payment too soon. The judge, Marianne Keller, had a narrow face, iron gray hair, and the expression of a woman who had spent 30 years listening to people explain why obvious wrongs were complicated. Bethany began with the property records. She laid out Cole's original limited power of attorney, the forged expansion, the impossible notarization date, the development option, the microchip transfer, and the link to Frostline Harbor Holdings. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. Her anger had footnotes. Leah spoke next, clinical and merciless. Sage was not neglected for a single night. The injuries show prolonged restraint. The puppies show chronic underfeeding and dangerous exposure. If they had remained in those conditions another 24 hours, I do not believe both would have survived. Victor Lang rose with concern arranged on his face like fresh flowers. Doctor, you are a veterinarian, not an investigator. Is it possible the dog escaped, gave birth in hiding, and sustained some injuries while roaming? Leah looked at him over her glasses. No. The room waited for more. Leah gave none. Judge Keller's mouth almost moved. Victor tried again. No possibility? No reasonable one. A mother dog does not create a fixed chain scar around her own neck for dramatic effect. Someone in the back coughed into a hand. Cole looked down. If he looked at Leah, he might smile, and smiling felt dangerous in that room. Hank testified after the video played. The footage was grainy, streaked with snow, but clear enough. Trent entering the boathouse with feed bags and leaving with them still mostly full. Roy Decker carrying a crate. Paige standing outside with a blanket, crying, then turning away. Sage's shape visible through the door crack, pulling against a chain. Hank's voice shook as he answered. I watched. Not all the time, but enough. I should have called. Victor softened his tone, which made Cole dislike him more. Mr. Mallory, you are elderly, live alone, and have had disputes with Mr. Halverson over dock access, correct? Hank's hands twisted around his cap. Yes. So your testimony may be influenced by resentment. Hank looked at the still image of Sage on the monitor. "Counselor, if resentment could make a man brave, I would have called sooner." The answer landed quietly. Quiet things kept doing that. Judge Keller froze the contested transfers, temporarily suspended business claims involving the animals, and ordered Sage and the puppies to remain in veterinary protective custody pending further hearing. It was a partial victory, legal and cold. The house itself remained under review because the property filings were tangled, and Trent's attorney asked for mental health records to argue Cole was unfit to regain control. Bethany objected so sharply that the court reporter blinked. Judge Keller allowed a narrow review, not the fishing expedition Victor wanted. Cole accepted it because accepting did not mean surrender. As they left, Paige finally spoke his name. He stopped, but did not turn fully. "There is more at the boathouse," she said. Bethany stiffened. "What more?" Paige's lips trembled. "A safe under the workbench. Trent kept originals there when he thought the house might be searched. I did not know the combination, but I know he moved a welding tank there last week. He said if things went wrong, paper burns cleaner than people." Aaron's radio crackled before anyone could answer. A deputy's voice came through, tight with urgency. "Sheriff, we have smoke near Bottle Bay. Looks like Lower Mercer property." Cole was moving before the sentence finished. Aaron caught his arm at the courthouse door. "With me, not ahead of me." The drive to the lake was all siren and sunlight on snow. Cole sat rigid in the passenger seat, seeing flames before they arrived. The boathouse had already begun to smoke when they reached the slope, gray columns leaking from the back wall. Hank's old pickup was parked crooked by the lane. The old man stood near the tree line with a garden hose that had frozen useless in his hands, shouting at the building as if shame could put out fire. "I saw Roy," he yelled. "He ran toward the dock." Aaron sent deputies around both sides. Cole grabbed a shovel from Hank's truck and followed the sheriff down. Leah's van skidded in behind them because apparently disobedience was contagious among people who cared about dogs. Fire crawled along the inside wall, more smoke than flame, eating papers spilled from a metal safe someone had forced open. Aaron dragged the safe clear while Cole shoveled snow through the doorway, choking on chemical stink. Leah found a bucket and attacked embers with the focused fury of a woman cleaning a wound. Under the workbench, wrapped in oilcloth and shoved behind a loose stone, Cole found a second ledger, 3 notarized forms with blank spaces, a flash drive, and a small sealed bag containing 2 puppy collars and a faded blue ribbon. He froze. Hank saw the ribbon and turned away, shoulders folding. From behind the boathouse came a shout. A deputy tackled Roy Decker near the dock, and the 2 men slid across snow until they hit an overturned canoe. Roy cursed, then looked at the smoking building and began saying he only did what Trent told him to do. Aaron stood over him, breathing hard. "Keep talking," the sheriff said. "You are finally developing charm." Cole looked toward the cedar tree by the dock where Paige had said the 3rd puppy was buried. Snow covered the ground in a smooth white sheet. For the first time all day, he let himself bow his head. Not long. Long enough to promise the nameless little life that it would not be left out of the record. Then Bethany's phone rang. She listened, eyes on Cole, and her face sharpened. "Judge Keller is reconvening tomorrow," she said. "Roy's arrest changes everything." And Trent just claimed from custody that Paige forged the papers alone. Snow began again before sunrise, softer than the first storm, but steady, laying a clean white skin over the blackened wall of the boathouse and the courthouse steps alike. By mid-morning, Bonner County's main hearing room was crowded with townspeople, reporters, deputies, and a few quiet veterans who had heard Cole Mercer's name through the invisible network by which former service members learn when one of their own is standing in a hard place. Cole did not want an audience. Truth did not become truer because more people watched it. Still, when he saw the old men in worn unit caps sit together near the back, he felt something in his chest loosen by half an inch. He sat beside Bethany with Leah on the other side, her medical folder expanded into 2 folders overnight. Hank sat behind them a little straighter than before, wearing a clean shirt and the same old cap. Paige sat with a public defender, looking smaller than she had in the doorway of the house,
as if each truth spoken aloud had stripped away another layer of polish. Trent entered in county clothing rather than a suit, which changed him more than Cole expected. Without the coat, the shoes, the controlled setting, he looked less like power and more like appetite denied. Victor Lang still wore a perfect suit and carried a leather briefcase, but his smile had thinned since Roy's arrest. Judge Keller called the room to order. Bethany began with the evidence recovered from the boathouse fire, the forced safe, the blank notarized forms, the flash drive, and the second ledger listing payments from prospective buyers for the Puppies and projected development milestones for Frostline Harbor. Aaron testified that Roy Decker had been detained fleeing the scene and had stated on body camera that Trent ordered him to destroy documents. Victor objected to the statement until the video played. Roy's voice filled the room high with panic. Trent said, "Burn the files, not the whole damn place." The judge's pen stopped moving for one beat. Cole watched Trent's jaw flex. Leah testified again, this time with photographs printed large enough for no one to hide in abstraction. She described the neck scarring, the untreated strain, the pneumonia, the puppy's condition, Wren's fever, Blue's dehydration, and the likely death of the 3rd puppy. She did not dramatize. The facts did their own work. Victor rose for cross-examination with his voice softened into sorrow. "Dr. Brooks, you care deeply for animals, yes? That is a disadvantage in my line of work, only when speaking to lawyers." A murmur passed through the room. Judge Keller looked over her glasses. Leah folded her hands. "Yes, I care deeply." Victor tried to suggest bias, emotional involvement, improper custody, even that Leah and Cole had formed a personal connection that colored her judgment. Cole felt heat rise behind his eyes, but Leah only looked bored. "My judgment is colored by temperature, weight, respiration, wound patterns, and blood work. If Mr. Mercer had brought me those animals after causing the injuries himself, my report would read the same, and I would dislike him accordingly." The veterans in the back became very interested in the ceiling. Hank came next. He walked to the stand carefully, as if the floor might refuse him. Bethany asked what he saw, what he recorded, why he had waited, and what made him come forward. Hank answered each question without decorating himself. "I was afraid." "Afraid of Mr. Halverson?" "Yes." "Afraid of losing your property?" "Yes." "Anything else?" Hank looked at Cole, then at the photo of Sage. "Afraid of being the kind of man who heard suffering and did nothing. Then I became him anyway." The room went silent. Victor stood slowly. "Mr. Mallory, you admit you failed to report what you claim to have seen. Why should this court trust a man who sat on evidence until it benefited his neighbor?" Hank nodded, accepting the blow because it was true. "You should not trust me because I am good. You should trust the camera because it is less cowardly." Bethany lowered her head for 1 second, and Cole suspected she was hiding something like approval. Then came Cole. He walked to the witness chair with every eye on him and felt none of the old thrill of danger, only the ache of wanting to be back at the clinic where Sage breathed and the puppies dreamed. Bethany led him through the timeline: departure contract, ambush, hospital failed communications, his return, the discovery on the highway, the changed locks, the clinic, the documents. He answered plainly. No war stories longer than needed, no speeches. When Victor cross-examined, the room seemed to lean. "Mr. Mercer, you have experienced combat trauma." "Yes." "You have nightmares." "Sometimes." "You were emotionally shocked to find your wife with another man." "Yes." "You were angry." "Yes."
Victor spread his hands.
Is it possible that anger led you to misinterpret neglect, poor judgment, and legal confusion as a conspiracy? Cole looked at Trent. Trent looked back, face empty. Then Cole looked at the judge. I have seen neglect. I have seen poor judgment. I have seen legal confusion. A chain bolted to a wall is not confusion. Victor adjusted his glasses. But you are not a handwriting expert. No. Not a property attorney. No. Not a veterinarian. No. So what are you? The question hung there, smug and shiny. Cole did not answer quickly. He thought of Sage's eyes in the storm of Blue's tiny teeth on his thumb, of Wren breathing fog against the oxygen chamber of Paige, at the door of Hank, kneeling in snow. I am the man who came home, he said. That turned out to be inconvenient. A sound moved through the room before the judge silenced it. Victor sat sooner than he intended. Bethany called a handwriting specialist by video, then a hospital records administrator from Malta, then the county notary supervisor who confirmed the stamp number on the expanded power of attorney belonged to a notary who had retired 6 months before the date listed. Each witness tightened the net. Trent's face changed by degrees, a house losing lights room by room. Near the end of the day, Victor shifted strategy. He argued that Paige, not Trent, had forged the documents out of grief and fear, then involved Trent after the fact. Paige went still. Her public defender whispered urgently. Bethany objected, but Judge Keller allowed limited questioning because Trent's claim had been entered through counsel. Victor began to speak about Paige's instability, her loneliness, her motive to keep the house, her access to Cole's signatures, her responsibility for the animals. Cole expected Paige to fold. She had folded so often that folding had become part of the story. Instead, she stood. Her chair scraped the floor. The judge looked at her sharply. Mrs. Mercer, sit down unless your counsel has advised you. Paige's face was pale, but her voice carried. Your Honor, I need to testify. Not to save myself, to stop him from using my cowardice as his hiding place. The storm thickened against the courthouse windows, blurring Sandpoint into white and gray, while Paige Mercer stood in the aisle with every comfortable lie in the room, turning to look at her. Judge Keller studied her for a long moment, then spoke to Paige's public defender, to Bethany, to Victor Lang, and finally to Paige herself, making sure she understood that testimony could expose her to criminal charges. Paige listened with her hands clasped, split lip healing badly, eyes red but dry. I understand, she said. I have understood more than I admitted for a long time. She took the witness chair. Cole watched her walk past him and felt no triumph. The heart was strange that way. It could be broken by the guilty and still not enjoy seeing them bleed. Bethany questioned her first, gently, but without softness where softness would rot. Paige told the court that after Cole vanished, she received partial updates, then nothing. She described the first year honestly enough that Cole had to stare at the table, calling agencies, checking email at 3 in the morning, sleeping on the couch because the bed felt like a question. Trent began by helping with taxes and repairs. He knew county clerks, contractors, banks. He arrived with solutions already printed. I wanted someone to tell me what to do, Paige said. He did. That was the beginning of it. She admitted that she signed confirmations without reading them fully. She admitted that when the expanded power of attorney appeared, she noticed Cole's signature looked wrong and said nothing. She admitted Trent used the phrase business asset for Sage after changing the microchip registration. Her voice nearly failed there, but she forced it forward. Sage kept trying to get to the road. She would sit by the front door and whine. Trent said she was dangerous because she made buyers uncomfortable, because she knew Cole was alive before I let myself believe it. Bethany asked about the puppies. Paige closed her eyes. Trent bred her to a registered shepherd outside Coeur d'Alene.
He said the litter would cover costs and make the company books look normal. I told myself dogs had puppies all the time. Then Sage gave birth in the boathouse because he said she was too aggressive for the house. There were 3. The smallest died. I brought blankets after, but I did not take her out. I did not call Dr. Brooks. I did not call the sheriff. Her eyes opened. I heard Sage cry. I knew Blue and Wren were hungry. I chose my own fear. No one moved. The sentence sat in the room uglier than any excuse and cleaner than all of them. Victor tried to recover on cross-examination, but Paige had crossed some inner border beyond his reach. Yes, she had signed. Yes, she had benefited. Yes, she had lied when Cole came to the door. No, Trent had not forced every silence. He built the cage, she said, looking once at Cole, then away. I helped keep it locked.
Trent hissed something to Victor. The judge heard enough to warn him. By sunset, Judge Keller issued temporary orders from the bench. The expanded power of attorney was suspended as presumptively fraudulent. All Frost Line Harbor transfers involving Cole's property were frozen. Control and access to the house, boathouse, and lower parcel were restored to Cole pending full civil review. Sage, Blue, and Wren were released to Cole's custody under Leah's medical supervision. Evidence would be referred for criminal prosecution on fraud, forgery, animal cruelty, evidence tampering, witness intimidation, and related conspiracy charges. Paige would face charges too, including false filings and animal neglect, but the court noted her cooperation. Trent was remanded without bail, pending further hearing after the new evidence and Roy's statement. The gavel fell. It did not sound like victory. It sounded like a door unlocking in a house that still smelled of smoke. Cole stood outside the courthouse afterward, while deputies escorted Trent through a side exit. Snow clung to his hair and shoulders. Bethany came out carrying folders against her chest.
"You have access tonight," she said. "Do you want me there?" He looked toward the lake road. "No, thank you." "Do not thank lawyers too warmly. It confuses us." He almost smiled. Leah drove him to the clinic first. Sage was waiting in the lobby because apparently cages, pens, blankets, and medical advice were all suggestions offered by lesser minds. Blue and Wren slept in a warmed carrier, their bellies round, their paws twitching. When Cole knelt, Sage pressed her forehead into his chest with enough force to hurt. He welcomed it. "We can go home," he whispered. Her ears lifted at the word. Home had become complicated, but dogs often understood that words could be rebuilt by use. Hank followed them in his truck, headlights bobbing behind Leah's van as they drove to Bottle Bay Road. At the house,
The porch light still glared white. Cole stood under it with the key Paige had surrendered through the sheriff. The new lock turned smoothly. Too smoothly. He pushed the door open and smelled cold cedar polish, old smoke, and a faint trace of Trent's cologne. He did not step in. Not yet. The rooms beyond held new furniture, missing photographs, paperwork, ghosts, and the shape of every silence. Sage stepped past him first. She moved slowly, stiff from injury, nose low to the floor. She sniffed the entryway, the baseboards, the place where her bed used to be. Then she turned around and looked back at him. Not joyful, not healed. Alive. That was a different blessing, and maybe a sturdier one. Cole entered. Leah carried the puppy carrier in and set it near the old hearth. Blue woke and made a complaining sound. Wren answered with a squeak so small everyone stopped to hear it. Hank stood at the threshold, unwilling to cross. Cole looked at him. "Come in, Hank." The old man shook his head.
"I do not know if I should." "Neither do I." After a moment, Hank stepped inside. He carried an old brass hurricane lantern, cleaned and filled.
"June liked this one," he said.
Figured the porch could use a better light. Cole took it carefully. Some apologies were not words. Some were objects held in cold hands. Together they removed the white porch fixture before midnight. Leah held the ladder and insulted Cole's wiring technique. Hank handed up screws. Sage watched from a blanket by the door with Blue and Wren tucked against her belly, her eyes following every movement. When the lantern finally glowed gold behind the glass, the porch changed. Not back. Forward. Cole looked down the slope toward the boathouse, its burned wall black against snow. "I am tearing that down," he said. Leah stood beside him, arms folded against the cold. "Good. Then I am building something there." "A shed?" Hank asked. Cole watched Sage lower her head to nuzzle Wren closer. "A winter refuge.
Heated kennels. Emergency intake. A place people can call before dogs end up in chains. Maybe Bethany can help with paperwork for veterans getting squeezed by developers too." Hank swallowed. "I can fix latches." Leah looked at Cole, and in her expression there was no pity, no hunger to fill Paige's absence, only a steady respect that felt like warmth without pressure. "I can handle medicine," she said. From the blanket, Blue sneezed himself awake and looked personally betrayed by air. Wren yawned. Sage put one scarred paw over them both. The old life was gone. Cole understood that at last, without the sentence killing him. In its place, something smaller and truer had begun breathing on his hearth. Spring came late to Lake Pend d'Oreille, with snow lingering in the blue shadows under the pines and meltwater running silver along Bottle Bay Road. By the time the first clean wind moved across Sandpoint, carrying the smell of thawed earth and wet cedar, the Lower Mercer property no longer looked like a crime scene, pretending to be a memory. The burned boathouse was gone. Cole had taken it down board by board, keeping only one beam sanded clean and mounted above the new gate as a reminder that wood could hold pain and still be shaped into shelter. In its place stood Frostline Harbor Rescue, a long cedar building with heated kennels, a small treatment room for Leah, a feed shed Hank guarded like a bank vault, and a porch wide enough for tired people to sit without having to explain themselves immediately. The sign was hand-carved because Cole refused to order one online. The letters were imperfect. Hank said that gave them character.
Bethany said it gave her grounds to recommend a professional. Leah said both men were banned from design decisions after the incident with the crooked paw print. The paw print stayed. So did the warm gold lantern by the front door, June Mallory's old hurricane lamp refitted for electricity, but still glowing as if flame lived inside it. Every evening, Hank checked that light before checking anything else. He had become the unofficial keeper of doors latches and second chances. He spoke more now, though not too much. Some mornings he sat beside Sage on the porch and told her about June boat motors and the foolishness of men who waited until they were old to become useful. Sage listened with the grave patience of a creature who had heard worse confessions. She had healed slowly. The fur around her neck grew back unevenly, and the scar remained visible if one knew where to look. Her rear legs stiffened in damp weather. She disliked closed doors, and had once removed a pantry door from its hinges because Blue had rolled a biscuit under it. Leah called this behavioral recovery with property damage. Cole called it Sage being Sage. Blue grew into a sturdy black and tan pup with feet too large for his dignity and a habit of barking at buckets. Wren stayed smaller, pale sable and bright-eyed, with a soft wheeze when she ran too hard, but run she did, often, in wild loops around Sage until her mother pinned her with one paw and washed her face while Wren protested like a tiny engine. The first time Cole saw both puppies tumble through grass instead of lying flattened in snow with those sad, collapsed faces, he had to walk behind the feed shed and pretend to inspect lumber. Leah found him there and said nothing, which was the kindest thing she could have done. The legal cases moved slowly because earthly justice wore heavy boots.
Trent remained in custody for a time,
then entered a plea on several charges when Roy's testimony, the notary records, and the boathouse evidence left him fewer doors than he liked. The larger fraud case spread into other lakefront properties, and Bethany became so busy she threatened to retire every Friday and returned every Monday with sharper pencils. Paige faced consequences too. She pled to false filings and animal neglect, received probation, restitution, mandated counseling, and community service under a program that did not place her near Sage or the puppies. Cole did not ask the town to hate her. He did not ask anyone to excuse her. When people pressed him for a grand statement, he said only that fear did not absolve a person from opening a door. Paige wrote him one letter. He read it on the porch with Sage beside him, then placed it in a drawer. Some forgiveness, he discovered, was not a bridge back to the person who hurt you. Sometimes it was a gate you opened inside yourself so poison could leave. He wished Paige healing. He did not wish her home. Frostline Harbor Rescue grew from necessity into habit, and from habit into a small, stubborn ministry. Aaron sent deputies with dogs found in sheds, cars, and yards where winter had been used as an excuse for cruelty. Leah vaccinated, stitched, scolded, and occasionally sang under her breath when she thought no one heard. Bethany held monthly legal clinics at the long table, helping veterans, widows, and elderly landowners read documents before smooth voices turned them into traps. Hank repaired gates, taught teenagers how to fix hinges, and kept a notebook titled "Things I Should Have Reported Sooner," which he used for every suspicious truck, limping dog, or lonely neighbor whose porch light stayed off too long. Cole did the work in front of him. He carried feed. He answered calls at midnight. He sat with animals too frightened to be touched, and learned that patience could be harder than combat. Some nights he still woke with salt water in his dreams. When that happened, Sage was there. Not always at once, because she was a mother and busy with 2 growing fools, but eventually he would hear her nails click down the hall. She would push the bedroom door open, put her scarred head against the mattress, and breathe until he found the rhythm again. On the 1-year anniversary of the blizzard, Sandpoint held a fundraiser at the rescue. Snow fell lightly, not savage this time, but soft and almost shy, settling on fence rails, truck hoods, and the shoulders of people carrying blankets, checks, dog food, casseroles, and awkward apologies. The yard filled with warm voices. Dogs barked from the kennels, some deep, some shrill, all alive. Aaron stood by the gate pretending he was not emotional. Bethany arranged donation forms with suspicious intensity. Hank lit the porch lantern early. Leah moved through the crowd in a green jacket, hair loose for once, laughing when Blue stole a mitten from a county commissioner and led 3 children on a chase around the woodpile. Wren stayed near Sage, braver now, but still wise enough to let her brother make most public mistakes. At sunset, Cole climbed the porch steps with Sage at his side. He did not make a speech because speeches had a way of growing beyond the truth. He looked at the people gathered there, then at the golden light in the lantern, then at the mother dog who had crossed a blizzard with 2 puppies because love, when faithful enough, could become a map. "This place is for the ones who waited too long," he said, "and for the ones who are ready to open the door." That was all. It was enough. Sage leaned against his leg. Blue and Wren collapsed beside her, not from cold this time, not from hunger, but from the splendid exhaustion of being young, safe, and deeply unprofessional. Their faces were peaceful in the porch light. Cole rested one hand on Sage's head and looked over the rescue, the lake, the pines, and the people who had chosen to become better after being late. He had come home wanting the life stolen from him. He did not get it back. By the mercy of God, and by the stubborn courage of one wounded German shepherd mother, he received something truer. A home that no longer depended on pretending pain had never entered, a family built by action instead of paper, and a light left on for every soul still trying to find its way through snow. This story reminds us that love is not proven by beautiful promises, but by the door we open when someone is cold, hungry, frightened, or forgotten. Cole could not undo the months Sage suffered, and Hank could not erase the nights he stayed silent. But both men learned that grace often begins with one honest action taken late, but taken fully. In our own lives, we may not find a loyal dog in a blizzard, yet we meet people and creatures every day who are waiting for someone to notice. A phone call, a warm meal, a truthful word, a report made at the right time, or a porch light left on, can become part of God's mercy in a dark season. If this story touched your heart, comment Amen and share it with someone who needs courage to open a door. May God bless your home, soften what fear has hardened, protect every innocent life, and place faithful light beside you when the road grows cold.